What's going on, everyone? This is Kevin here, coming at you with 7 reasons to avoid buying the Motorola Moto G Stylus 5G 2023. So without further ado, let's get started. Now to clarify, for what it is, I do think the Moto G Stylus 5G 2023 is actually a really great smartphone. This device is packed full of various features, and it can really do a lot, especially considering that it features a price of just $399 as its MSRP for the factory unlocked model of the phone. However, there are still some things that this phone does lack, and I wanted to make this video to go over all those various shortcomings so that there aren't any potential surprises if you do happen to buy this phone. Now coming in number 1 is that there is no wireless charging with the Moto G Stylus 5G 2023. Now, if you're not familiar with wireless charging or the various benefits with it, essentially if you have a wireless charging pad, you can just put the phone on that pad and it'll then recharge. So you don't have to actually plug into the main USB-C port every time you want to recharge the phone. And I know that for me, any devices I use that have wireless charging, I do tend to use that feature quite a bit. For example, I have a wireless charger in my kitchen, I have another one in my bedroom, and I have another one in my office. So it is really convenient to be able to place the phone on that charger anytime that it is necessary. And in addition to that, if you happen to damage the main charging port for some reason, then at least you still have an alternative method to recharge the device until you're able to get that fixed. Unfortunately though, with the G Stylus 5G 2023, wireless charging is nowhere to be found. The second reason to avoid buying the Moto G Stylus 5G 2023 is because of the charger that comes included in the box. Now I'll start off and mention that I am at least glad that we have a charger that's included here, especially considering that nowadays we're seeing less and less smartphones giving us a charger for free. I guess they expect that most people want to use their current charger, but keep in mind that with the G Stylus 5G 2023, this phone features 20-watt fast charging compatibility, and that's really useful, especially since the battery is so large here at 5,000 milliamp hours. The only problem is this charger that's included is only 10 watts. So that's great and all that there's at least a charger here, but you won't be able to charge the phone nearly as quickly as it's actually capable of being recharged at. And that's even more obvious with a device like this one that has such a large internal battery. So while you can certainly get by with this charger, you're gonna have a way better experience with a 20-watt fast charger instead. And I definitely do recommend going out and making that purchase and upgrading the charger, but what's gonna happen is the charger that's included is just gonna end up in the trash. So I would have preferred that Motorola spend a little bit more money, I'm sure it would cost them like an extra $10 if anything, and give us a 20-watt fast charger so we can recharge the phone at its full charging rate. The third reason to potentially avoid buying this phone is the display. Now on a more positive note, I do think the display that we're getting here is really good. However, things could be even better. So the display that we're getting here with the phone is IPS LCD, but some of the competition out there, such as the Galaxy A54 or the Pixel 7a, have a better quality OLED display. Or in Samsung's case, it's AMOLED. And basically, if you have an AMOLED or OLED display, you're gonna be getting even brighter, richer colors, and better viewing angles. So those phones kind of come in at a similar price tag to this device. And I think if we would have gotten AMOLED here or OLED instead, the display, which already looks pretty good, would have looked way better. Not to mention, OLED or AMOLED is more power efficient as well, so you'd be able to get even more battery life out of the phone if it did use that display technology instead of IPS LCD. The fourth reason to potentially avoid buying this device is because of the lack of major Android software updates that it'll be getting in the future. Now, at least Motorola has committed to giving this phone one major Android software update. So out of the box, it does come with Android 13, and they have guaranteed that this phone will be getting Android 14. However, a lot of the competition is much more generous when it comes to long-term support related to the software. For example, with the Samsung Galaxy A54, Samsung has pledged to give that device 4 years of major Android software updates. So it'll be getting Android 14, 15, 16, and 17. And then meanwhile, this phone will be stuck on Android 14. So in this day and age where sustainability seems to be a priority, they're really not giving their devices as much longevity by limiting the amount of software updates they get. Now, even though it won't be getting any major Android software updates beyond Android 14, the phone will still work completely fine. So it's not like after Android 15 comes out, the device will no longer function. But if you are someone who likes to have some of the latest features related to Android, then you will be missing out on them in the future if you do end up holding on to this phone. The next thing I want to mention is that there is no HDMI out via the USB-C port. Now, if you ever wanted to take your smartphone, plug plug it into your TV and then just have that content show up on your TV? Well, unfortunately, you can't do that by plugging in directly. Now, if you do have a Chromecast or another device similar to that, I believe you can mirror the display wirelessly, but I know many people do like to plug their devices directly into a monitor or a TV to show things on the bigger screen. For example, you can do that with some of the higher end Samsung smartphones like the S23, and just know that while that feature isn't that common with phones in this particular segment, you also won't be getting it here with this device. So I think that would have been great. That would have been a really nice feature. And if they could have even given this phone a desktop mode too, that would have made it even better and an even bigger value. So I do wish that we at least had some basic HDMI out via the USB-C port, but unfortunately that's not possible here with the Moto G Stylus 5G 2023. The next thing I want to mention is that there is no telephoto camera with this device. Now, thankfully the cameras that we are getting here are pretty good. So we're getting a 50 megapixel main camera and an 8 megapixel ultra wide angle camera, but it would have been nice to have a telephoto camera so that you can get some optical zoom. But since there is no telephoto camera, if you do want to zoom in, all it's doing is giving us a digital zoom, so it's just cropping in on your existing photo basically. And thankfully the digital zoom does work a bit better here, considering that we do have a 50 megapixel main camera, but I still would have preferred to have an actual telephoto camera here with the device. And then the final shortcoming of the Moto G Stylus 5G 2023 that I want to point out here in this video is the build materials. Now thankfully this phone does feel a lot more premium than it actually is, and I think given the plastic material that we're getting here, besides the display which is made of glass, Motorola has made the best of it. But since this phone is made of plastic, I do recommend pairing it up with some sort of case so that the plastic doesn't get scratched up as time goes on. I do at least really like this material on the back of the device because that doesn't pick up any fingerprints. So again, I think given that it's made out of plastic, they did do a pretty good job here. But that wraps up my 7 reasons to avoid buying the Moto G Stylus 5G 2023. So again, as I mentioned earlier on in the video, I actually think this device is an excellent value. You are getting a lot here for the money, but nowadays it can be pretty difficult to figure out what features you should expect to get with phones in different price segments. A lot of people expect that features that you'd find in older flagship phones, like flagship devices launched maybe 5 or 6 years ago, would have made their way over to mid-range phones like this one at this point, but unfortunately that's not the reality. What I mean by that, for example, is that the Galaxy S8 had a AMOLED display, and that device was launched half a decade ago, so you'd think that a mid-range phone in 2023 would at least have that level of display quality, but we're not getting that here. Or you might assume that since flagship phones in the past came with telephoto cameras, as they still do today, we'd at least have a telephoto camera with a newer mid-range phone like this one. But again, you don't get that feature here. But again, despite all that, I do think this is a very good device. I'm a big fan of the stylus. It does work really well, and it's great for navigating around the phone. You can also go over and write a note. So I drew a smiley face earlier, can also erase that, and then I can draw something else. However, I'm not that good at drawing. Let's see. I'll draw a tree. Yeah, it's not a very good tree. And then another thing I really like about this phone is the processor they decided to go with, which is the Qualcomm Snapdragon 6 Gen 1. That performs really well, so this phone is actually really fast, considering that it's just $399. So again, there's many great things to like and appreciate about the Moto G Stylus 5G 2023. But I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, definitely give it a thumbs up. But this is Kevin here, and I will see you in the next one. Take care and have a great rest of your day.